Yeah, yeah. So what year did you, or what winter did you, were you the manager there?
Ooh. I don't remember what the year my dad died in, but it was just after my dad died. That I ended up, I can't even remember exactly how it happened, but I was I do remember the guy who had been managing it. Like, it's really difficult to hire a manager who could just work through the winter, and be there the next winter. It's not a great job.
Right.
But the guy who was there, I got his job. The word went around that he had done something not very nice and lost his job. I met him. I remember his name if you ask me. I don't need to really, but anyway, I ended up with his job. And I could even walk from our house at the top of Valley Sus over to Cedar Highlands. I did that on occasion, but I could drive as well. So I was, I guess you could call me the general manager, but it's basically the facilities. I didn't run the nuts and bolts financial stuff, but
Right.
there all night long, all of the nights making snow and grooming.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking your dad passed away like in 84, 85 time frame.
Well, this would have been 85, 86 or something like that. It's close
Okay.
to that.
So it was sometime in the early 80s, probably early to mid 80s.
Yeah, at that time I was more or less getting out of Valley Sus stuff. I was always kind of easing myself out of the Valley Sus
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, because it was gone pretty much in 1980. That's when the chalet burned down at Valley Shush. So yeah, you would have been.
So it was after the chalet burnt. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this when you were like the next evolution, I guess. So we talked about these two T-bars
Yeah.
that were installed. They had some snow making.
Yeah.
What about this other piece of terrain? Do you know like when all this part over here was developed?
Okay. After I was there, um, they had two T bars. And again, the trends were we've got to get a bunch of people that have the money to buy an annual membership and maybe even get money in there to buy, in this case, they bought a triple T bar used from somewhere, I don't know where, a Palma T bar. Again, this was 2 or 3 years after I was there, maybe 4 or 5. So they were, as with Valley Shows, everybody was trying to make the place more attractive, more trails, more lifts, more appeal. So they ended up with they being the private club, which Cedar Highlands became a private club, more semi-private, because you could buy a ticket and go and ski there on certain days in the private club. Even when I was there, I do remember being in the chalet with the members. I didn't socialize all that much with them, but I did some. And they'd have women's days and men's days and things like that to get people interested. But the chairlift came on Kate's Peak, which was kind of a very enticing place. It didn't have the greatest exposure. It was kind of not as good as the other hills, but they ended up making this chairlift up Kate's Peak and bulldozing a whole lot. I don't know what it cost, but they did a lot of bulldozing.
All right. So at the beginning, this was down here was the first T-bar.
That's not no. That was a cable tow up a beginner's hill. The next one over is the first T-bar.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they needed a beginner's hill from the day one, and they didn't have one.
All right.
So
Let me.
bulldozing a bunch and putting a little cable tow up. My dad probably sold it to them.
So where in this picture would that little cable, the beginners area, been?
Well, go down to the chalet.
All right.
And straight across, not up to Arnold Thomas, but straight across that white mark there. That was the cable tow right there.
Okay.
Right up there. I remember I groomed that hill with the kayak haul machine they had when the winter I was there.
Okay, so that's okay. Well, that's making more sense to me then. So this was the beginner's hill, which was the cable tow.
Yeah.
Was it the same kind of cable tow that we talked about before, where it had the handles on it? You would grab.
Yeah, that was the post rope tow slash, all of a sudden you've got cable tows time. It was really hard to groom. I remember going up there and trying to turn around at the top. It was really, really difficult to run a great big machine with something behind it up and down that hill, but I did it.
Okay, so this over here where it says C, this was the original rope tow that got replaced with a T-bar.
Yeah.
Okay. And then over here where it says B, this was the second T-bar that your dad sold him.
And the cable tow fit in between those two, I'm sure. It was fairly early on that it was evident that they really needed beginner's hill.
You're saying there was a cable tow somewhere in here?
No, the one that we referred to at the very bottom of the
Oh, okay, right.
That happened because they really, like it was Valley, just you needed a place to teach beginners.
So at the are you saying at the very beginning this was not here and then they put it in later?
I don't think it was there at the very beginning.
Okay.
They would have just walked up the bottom of the Arnold Thomas to teach beginners on, the easy slopes, or found a place where they could do it.
Okay. And then, so this is the location of the chairlift you're referring to over here.
The used Palmolive triple chair. I don't know where it came from.
That had to be fairly expensive.
Well, I guess it was, but you'd have to check their records for that one. I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking of the evolution that you and I've talked about before, from the Palmolive cost to a T-bar, and then going to a triple chair. Do you remember what time frame that was put in, that triple chair lift?
Well, the winter I worked there, and I had a friend, Gordon Henry, who worked there just after I was there. He used to come and help me do some grooming and fix things, but he worked there for several winters after that. During that time, they expanded their workshop down wherever, I don't see it on your map there, but at the bottom of the chairlift. I don't know that he was there. He's dead now, so he can't tell the story, but this chairlift came up. Again, I don't know who managed it at that time, but the chairlift was, the private club's means of getting a whole lot of new people to buy into this place, because it was an expensive business.
So was the bottom of the triple chair somewhere in this area down here where this?
Right there.
Okay.
The space was limited.
And then was the top right up here?
You got it, right up somewhere. Okay. I never saw the top of it. I've never seen the top of that. I've seen Kate's Peak, but that was before the chairlift.
Okay.
I walked down that hill long before the chairlift. I walked down that Kate's Peak right to the shop.
Did your dad have anything to do with selling on that chairlift?
No, to my knowledge. He could have, but I don't know.
Okay, and I'm assuming you didn't participate in installing that lift or putting it up?
No way.
Okay.
I didn't even know it was there. I just heard by rumors, and a couple of years later I drove in and I said, holy smokes, they got a triple chairlift.
Okay, so this was after your time, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's I mean, that's some steep terrain there.
Very steep.
So let me go over here to our topographical map.
This is an anecdote you might be interested in. Way back when they first bought the place, and probably even when they had a rope tow, the keen skiers would have walked up Kate's Peak and said, wow, we want to ski down that hill. And they actually had races right from the top of Kate's Peak down and then up a little bump on the partway down the hill, all the way down to where that chairlift ended. I heard stories of those races, which must have been hellishly difficult, on crappy skis. This would have been at the very beginning, maybe in the 50s. I never saw them, but I know where they went, and it was really, really challenging terrain.
Well, yeah, you can see from the topographical map, this is a very, very steep.
Super steep.
Yeah, so that would have been excellent.
Straight down that from the top of Kate's Peak to the bottom of the triple chairlift.
Yeah.
It must have been quite a ride. I did hear stories about it. because at that time, or, when we started Valley Shift, Doug Frid and others would have these races. And I remember racing it from the top of Kate's Peak on Cedar Springs property down to the boundary with Doug Frid's property, and then down to the bottom. I remember racing on that in probably 1962.
Yeah, that's
It was a great race, Trail.
yeah, no, that's a really nice I mean, that's a great location for a lift, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of an interesting story, but a little ironic that Kate's Peak never became what it might have, but whatever.
Right. It certainly had the potential there.
Well, that's why Doug wanted it, and somehow there was so much acrimony. They just said, no, we're not going to sell you that.
Right. Do you have any idea? I know you kind of moved away from the area, but how long it survived, or when last thing you know of when it ceased to exist?
Oh, I don't know the dates, but I know it was not many years after this expansion, chairlift, etc. Snowmaking came before the chairlift. I don't know the date, but they would have been kind of coincident with the ending of the Valley Shush story.
Well, the chalet burned down in 80 for Valley Shift. So I'm thinking if you were there the mid 80s as the manager for one season, I'm thinking probably late 80s, early 90s. And then
Not likely the 90s. It didn't last many years.
Right.
It just couldn't keep going.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting looking at this picture. Like I said, I don't know the date on it, but obviously it's not that old. It's amazing how, everything is basically intact as far as the ski runs. I wonder if they purposely keep all that stuff mowed down and.
Well, I don't know that, but I do know, I may have told you this, Harold, but I went in there several years after the business had failed. Somebody else bought it. That family bought several ski resorts in the Hockley Valley and even tried to buy Valley Fifth, I think. But one member of the family bought Cedar Springs and converted the chalet into a very nice home. I remember driving up there years later thinking, oh, I should meet these people. Talking to a really nice woman, wife of the man who owned it. They still had a BR 400, a Bombardier that in the interim, some vandals had vandalized the Bombardier because it was for sale a couple of years and people would go in there and have parties and wreck things. Anyway, I do remember a conversation with her in what was the chalet, which became a home. And this family, which owned that place and what was left of the Loretto Ski Club and Montclair Ski Resort on the north side of the valley. And that was it. But several members of the family, they had lots of money and they bought these various ski hills, which are all going out of business and probably for sale pretty cheap. And they even had the T-bar there and they had the Bombardier. They fixed it up. They had friends come and ski there on their own T-bar and Bombardier and all that stuff. After I was there, I heard rumors of that.
Okay.
Nice thing if you have the money to do it.
Yeah, that's a really private ski club.
Yep.
Is there anything else you can think of? History-wise?
Yeah, we were kind of, me and my dad, we were ski resort consultants. I say that advisedly because, I didn't have any formal education in that, but, some experience. So that second T-bar that we helped them put up. I mean, Dad did the engineering work on these things, okay? Because he was an engineer and he could sign off on everything is okay, you can run it. So that was the second T-bar. I don't really think he had anything to do with the chairlift because he may have been deceased by that time.
Right.
But, again, we were asked, what should we do? And, we'd walk over it and tell them what to do. And they do it or not.
Do you remember when it was in operation with Valley Shows? Did you guys do um, like racing events? You know, the different ski resorts. Like, so they would do a race at Twin Horse, and then they would do one at Cedar Springs, and then do a race at Valley Shows.
Well, yes is the short answer. What I really remember is the ones that happened at Valley System. I don't even remember them all that well. I did race in the winter, God, I guess 1960, 61 on grass with a little bit of snow. But subsequent to that, there were other races, other years. I don't think any of them happened after we had snowmaking, but they might have. Again, I never really kept track of that stuff because I was the guy who ran the bombardier and stayed out of the way. I was not a very, sociable guy. I was not antisocial, but I didn't like crowds. So there were races at Valley Six for several years, and in your archive you have pictures of some of those. I'm sure they happened at other places, very likely at Cedar Springs. I don't know about Twin Hearts, but I know, I went racing up at Blue Mountain and Beaver Valley and Oshawa Ski Club in the early to mid 60s. Because, racing was the thing to do. And I was looking for whatever, something to do. So I raced and then I taught skiing and ran the ski school and stuff like that.
Right.